Hi everyone, I'm Aseel, Head of Corporate and Commercial HR Hiring at Frazer Jones, and I'm here today joined by Alysha.
Aseel, so great to be back with you today. So we're here today to talk about essentially what are the skills that people, leaders need to be building in this next phase of work. Thinking about this very deeply because I am a people and culture leader, but I also run a people, culture and AI consultancy. The reason I came here was because actually I've been working in people and culture for sort of 10 years. But as everyone who knows me well, yourself included, knows, I love to collect skills and have a very multidisciplinary approach to the things that I'm interested in. And actually, it was that curiosity that got me into artificial intelligence around 5 years ago. And ever since then, I have been experimenting, exploring, and thinking about application in the workplace.
Everyone's talking about implementing AI and that kind of like implementation and transformation journey in the workplace and the impact that has, and their kind of efficiencies. So what kind of nuances around that are we here to talk about today?
We have seen something really interesting in the last few years, which is an understanding of what artificial intelligence is, has entered this public consciousness, and people and culture leaders really recognise their role in embedding it in the workplace. But something that I've seen is that actually lots of leaders are now reaching this friction point, and I saw it again and again, which is one of two scenarios. Either they're struggling to actually embed the adoption of AI in their organisations, or they are now struggling to actually achieve the sort of promised gains in value that AI was supposed to bring, but they're not actually seeing any changes in their bottom line, they're not seeing significantly increased efficiencies. Viewing it through a organisational psychology and sort of behaviour psychology lens, this makes total sense, right? Because what we've done is we've adopted intelligent technologies and we've upgraded the tools, but we've actually not upgraded the people, culture and systems needed to work well with these technologies. We've missed out the culture change part and the systems that actually build in that behaviour change of adoption and the behaviour and skill sets that are needed for effective AI augmentation.
That does sound very familiar. And I think, so am I right in thinking there's like, from a culture change perspective, would that be like a kind of like training opportunity, a kind of relearning or like reframing our roles, our jobs within the new workplace?
So McKinsey recently published a report called I think it's Robots, Agents and Us, which was essentially unpacking and exploring some of these trends that we're seeing. And essentially what they identified was the next phase of work is not about intelligent technologies replacing us, but about a shift in the skills that we need to work with them effectively. And part of what that looks like in practice is actually two things. So we've not redesigned the workflows that are happening. Essentially AI has been bolted on. And all it does is add another layer of complexity, and that's why we don't feel like we're getting greater cognitive space or capacity to do the work. It feels like there is more that we are doing, but we're not actually producing better or higher quality work. But in addition to that, we've also got another issue, which is what's called the meta skills that are needed for effective partnering with AI and intelligent technologies. And those are different skill sets, and those are also different to the skills that we currently teach.
Okay, meta skills, that sounds intriguing. Can we talk about this a little bit more? So what are meta skills for the kind of like average layperson like me that has never heard this phrase before?
Okay, so meta skills in a definition are essentially these like intrinsic human skills that have actually been around for thousands of years. These are not new things, but meta skills and transversal skills, I've done a lot of research and a lot of digging into future of work studies, human and computer and human and AI interaction studies, and also sort of psychology work on resilience. And essentially have been mapping, okay, well, what do we need for the future of work? What skills are important? So meta skills are the skill sets that we have that artificial intelligence does not currently, and we're not anticipating in the very near future, have the capacity to do. It's things like critical thinking. It's things like creativity and imagination. It's the ability to have empathy. These really deep human skill sets. And what they do is when they're partnered with the capabilities of intelligent technologies, they enable us to get bigger and better results. So that's what intelligent augmentation is. Intelligence augmentation is a concept that's been around since the 1950s. I think it came out of cybernetics, but really it is technology and computers and All of these things should be about enhancing and increasing the intelligence of people, not about replacing us. So that's where, when we're thinking about 2026 and beyond, and we're thinking about the workforce and what do we need to be doing, we need to be building these skills into our workplaces, because these are the things that are not only going to create sustainability, they're not also only going to create effective AI partnering, so you're getting better results, but they're also the things that your people are going to need for a future of continuous technological evolution and pace. This, artificial intelligence is not the end of the tech transformation.
This makes an awful lot of sense, and I think, leaders in businesses need to start thinking about this, but it seems like an awfully big hill to climb. I feel like learning teams potentially don't have lots of extra resource in organizations. And I know because there's a lot of kind of structural changes to the AD function that we've seen in the last few years. So perhaps your learning function is not the most staffed department in the building, let's say. So what do you do? How do you embark on this huge learning and educational journey with your workforce?
So I think that you start by extracting the concept that it needs to be done by the L&D team and really connecting it to the business agenda regarding competitiveness and AI adoption and being ahead of the curve. So what we're seeing in so many spaces, we've separated some of these conversations too much. And when we're talking about workflow transformation, which is one of McKinsey's biggest recommendations, we're really talking about the transformation of how teams operate. And that is not something that's going to be built by a people and culture function, regardless of what team it is. It's something that's going to be done from a strategic level. What I see the opportunity is organisations unpacking what it is that where they are on their AI journey, and then where their next step is, and what it is that they're trying to achieve with it. And this is something that lots of organisations, there's a huge, hilariously, memification of the idea of do AI, and the question back is to do what, and there not being a clarity on reply. So getting that really clear in the organisation about what are we trying to achieve, and linking all of these things to that process. So you're looking at things like workforce design, you're looking at workflow design, strategic enablers. So these meta skills are not nice to haves. They're going to become the new currency of workplaces, and they're going to become what separates you from your competition. Because if you look out at the landscape, everyone's using artificial intelligence, and lots of the big organisations have adopted the same tools. So what is the difference between you and your competitor if you now both have access to these really powerful technologies? It's going to be the capabilities of the people who use them. It's going to be how well you have transformed the workflows that are happening, how much you've built it into your processes, how much you've got a culture that enables the pace that's needed to go alongside this. I think that we've not spent enough time unpacking how much the reality of the world that we're in does not fit with the brains that we have. And it's not a people thing, it is literally like evolutionary psychology. Change triggers the amygdala part of the brain, that reptilian part of the brain. Great ideas and great innovations do not come from thinking in that space. So we need to design cultures that enable people to be resilient and supported through constant change, evolution, ambiguity.
And do you think that you could go so far as to say that there needs to be like a mind shift in the concept of learning, the decentralization of learning, and almost like the responsibility being put back onto the individual? Would you think it would be like the individuals who really thrive and who can deal with change and who can upskill and who can do all those things that fit into the kind of new way of working? Do you think it might be fair to say that those individuals are largely self-driven in their development and taking the responsibility on themselves? I feel like sometimes there's a concept of, oh, if this learning is needed for my job, it needs to be given to me in a module. What if we just, smash that whole concept up into little pieces and say, well, what about if the future is self-driven? Do you think that might be fair?
I think that a skill set of the future is absolutely going to be learners, not knowers. Right? That's what organisations need. You need people who can adapt not just with technology, but with the wider evolutions of industries. However, your context matters hugely in your ability to do that. It is an uphill struggle, regardless of how self-motivated you are, if you're not in an environment that enables, values and supports those things. Actually, we need to recognise the cultural structures, systems, nudges that we are sending, intentionally or unintentionally, to enable and power that. And part of it is actually also going to be really interesting when it comes to, the organisations that get ahead are going to be the ones that see the human value and investing in the human skill sets. Because if we're investing in the technology, but we're not investing in the human skills, not just tech fluency or AI fluency, this broader skill set of the genuine skills that are needed for effective partnering with technology. Why are we spending hundreds of thousands or millions on the tech if we are not actually equipping the system to work well with it? So I think that part of it is that we've separated these two things, these two strands, and we've said technologies in this space, people and culture in this space. Actually, good organisations know that your people are powering the work that you do, and all of the research on the most competitive organisations, the organisations that have achieved the most in really difficult landscapes, are the ones whose culture enabled it. They enabled fast learning, they enabled growth, but they also enabled psychological safety, creating spaces for teams to learn and grow, and building that into how they work together. And that is not something that is just done from the top, but it absolutely is the role of people and culture leaders to look at this strategically and to unpick these different elements of the puzzle and say, where are we on our AI adoption journey? What are our next steps? What are we trying to achieve? What are the people, culture and systems that we need to do that?
And you mentioned earlier about this kind of like navigating constant change. Traditionally, there's been like, a couple of clean changes at a time where you can kind of compartmentalize that change and be like, okay, now we do this one thing. But now I guess we operate in a landscape where the sands are shifting in multiple ways. What's the toolkit that we need? That's almost like a kind of like complete transformation in how a lot of people's brains process information and cope with information changes, right? So this constant change with multiple prongs to it. What's the toolkit for this?
So I've built out a sort of the three houses of meta skills that I think are needed for the future of work. Those three skills houses look at the human skills that are going to be needed. So one of them is actually self-insight, knowing yourself deeply, understanding your values, self-efficiency, control or influence what happens, really changes our brain's response to change and pace. The ability to think of a future self state and to be able to work forwards and understand what it is that you're going to do to get there. These are sort of very much, again, based in psychology, but they're things that are building out the ability and the skills to not just feel that anxiety and move with pace and just do all of these things without strategic thinking. That's what it's really supposed to be enabling. It's also enabling resilience. If we move at pace, but our people do not move with us, if everyone's burning out, we're losing our best talent, that is not a great place to approach any problem from. So we need to be building those things in. And those are not skills that are taught in our education or our society or our workplaces. They're not things that are valued. So self-insight is one of those houses. Another of the houses is collective intelligence. Now, there's some really interesting research on the factors of collective intelligence, but basically what's being found is that in any AI-enabled workplace industry, the value of the human skill sets like collaboration, communication, etc., those all increase by about 50%. So those are the skill sets that are going to enable you to work effectively with each other. When I was doing the Oxford Artificial Intelligence programme, there was a big conversation about what the future held for leaders and whether artificial intelligence would replace leaders. And the answer kept being no, because they are not going to be, that's not going to be able to bring the empathy, the insight, the understanding about what that people need to be led by incredible leaders.
Sometimes it's that kind of moment of inspiration they give you. I don't think many people can be that inspired.
No, absolutely. You're feeling seen, you are feeling valued. You do not feel seen and valued by an intelligent technology because you also know that that intelligent technology is designed to already see and like you. It's programmed to do that. So those collective intelligence is going to be a real enabler, and that's also going to allow people to partner better in teams with technology, and leaders. Leaders need to be able to lead hybrid teams, hybrid intelligence teams. They're building agents and team members and automations into their thinking, and you actually need a real nuance to be able to do that. So collective intelligence is really important. Creative and critical intelligence is going to be the new differentiator for organisations. So that is something that sits in the space of being able to evaluate the work of artificial intelligence, but it's also the ability to sit outside of what artificial intelligence can give you. AI is great at so many things, right? But what it's not good at doing in reality is original thought. It's actually not able to be original in its thinking. It can combine lots of data points and lots of interesting stories and reapply, but it's not able to be original. And so again, if we think about this context of people are all working with the same tools, your ability of your people to ask different questions, to think outside, truly outside the box, is going to be really important. I was having a really interesting conversation recently with someone who works in AI and education, and they was talking about how important it is that we support young people to develop the skill sets to be able to evaluate the outputs of artificial intelligence. So you're an expert in your field, you look at something that AI produces, you think, that's wrong, or this is misconstrued this, or this is picked up on the wrong details here, and that is really helpful, right? Then you can transform that output and use it in a meaningful way. If you do not have the industry expertise in that specific area, and you are given an output by AI, you need the ability to evaluate, critically think, and what's called judgment, so discernment and judgment, and essentially figure out, is this accurate, is this correct? And that's a skill set that we don't just need for early careers, it's a skill set we're going to need for all people in the organisation.
All people being, you know, it may be something that ends up being our kind of like future talent, you know, starting from primary school level. These are skills that they will probably need to be teaching in schools.
Absolutely, and 32% of entry-level roles disappeared in the UK in 2025. That's a trend that's only anticipated to increase due to how we're using AI to replace tasks, how that means that we need to transform entry-level roles to be more dynamic, but we also need to be thinking about how we're building our future leaders. It's really important that when we're making what feel like efficiencies, that we're thinking about what this is going to do from an industry perspective, because in 5 to 10 years, you're going to need people to take over leadership roles and management positions. And if you, as a collective, have not brought that talent into your industry, what are you going to be doing then? So the people you do bring in, it's really important that you're upskilling them with the correct skill sets. And I actually, I'm on the board of a social enterprise, and that's part of what we're doing, is working with young people on the skills that they need for the future, and also working with organisations on early career programmes so that they are able to support young people to enter this really fluid, really fast-changing workplace, and actually have the skills to add value and also to thrive during it rather than just survive.
Wow, we've got so much to think about. Hopefully this conversation has been inspiring to you know, future talent, future leaders, current leaders, strategic thinkers, you know, all of those people within workplaces. We've had the conversations around AI, and now this is the stuff we need to start thinking about for the kind of next phase of adoption. Alysha Adams, as ever, it's been a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Aseel.